Japanese citizens. There was no mention of that. And also on human rights, as John was saying in that report, I mean, a lot of people realize that this summit was about denuclearization. It is about that hugely important issue, but it's about risk and reward. And a lot of people would say, well, yeah, it is worth risking the legitimization of a regime like Kim Jong-un if the reward is denuclearization. But if the deal falls short of that, have you risked legitimizing a regime with all its human rights violations like this on the world stage? And I think we're going to have to wait and see going forward. I do think it's probably important to give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt. It's better to talk than to bomb each other, as you say. You know, a few months ago we didn't really expect to be where we are now, but nevertheless we have to wait and see just what this agreement actually means in practice.
Yeah, it is extraordinary, and a lot of when President Trump did that long sort of slurping news conference after the signing of this agreement, many of the journalists asked him about human rights, and he acknowledged that denuclearization was priority number one, but he did say that he talked about it, but it wasn't clear to what extent. How much do you think his answers about human rights will satisfy some of the people around the world who are watching all of this?
Well, I think, to be blunt, probably not at all. And I think, to be fair, human rights were never really going to be at the center of this. It was about denuclearization. But we shouldn't forget that this is obviously a brutal dictator. He cannot be whitewashed just by one meeting with the leader of the free world. And that's exactly really part of the reason why he wanted this meeting in the first place. I think one of the most extraordinary things for me watching this today was seeing his walkabout with Donald Trump close to where US press, amongst others, were stood, because a lot of foreign press weren't actually allowed into the Capella Resort to ask questions. And one journalist shouted, "When are you going to open your prisons?" And you saw Kim Jong-un, slightly taken aback by that, because that's not something that the leader of North Korea has ever heard before, and that close to him like that from a journalist. So really holding this man to account, that is what people around the world want to happen. And I don't think that they necessarily trust Donald Trump or this administration to do that. But I think perhaps they could trust him to get a deal on denuclearization. And of all the threats that face us around the world, that must be the most serious.
It was amazing to see the journalists shouting questions at Kim Jong-un, a country that completely controls the narrative, the propaganda, the message. Nobody shouts questions at this man. But he seemed to handle it well, like he had prepared for it, didn't flinch, didn't seem to be off-put in any way by those questions. But I wanted to ask you something else, because we were getting word, and forgive me, I'm not sure if you actually saw this or heard about it, but we were getting word that the White House, the president's team, played a video for Kim Jong-un and part of his delegation on a tablet. And that video was something like a Hollywood film trailer, which basically laid out two destinations for North Korea. They could choose peace, prosperity, power, and success, or basically destruction if they don't come to some kind of agreement with the United States and with the West. Did you yourself ever see that video, ever hear about that video and what may have been in it?
Yeah, we saw it actually, because it played out for journalists as they were congregated in the press center before that long and winding press conference that Donald Trump gave. And a lot of people were tweeting at the time that they thought that it was some kind of North Korean video. And then it transpired actually that it was the Americans that had put it together, and they called it Destiny Films. I think it was an ironic kind of swipe at what could be possibly come as a result of peace talks between these two nations. But to watch it was extraordinary. It had images of Kim